Hello and welcome to Politics War Room with James Carville, and I'm Al Hunt. This week our guest is Congressman Ritchie Torres of New York. Now remember, we love taking your questions, so write into politicswarroom@gmail.com or send a tweet to @Politicon for next week's show. We'll get to as many as we can, but don't forget to tell us where you're from. You can also get text updates about what's next for Politicon and Politics War Room by signing up at politicon.com. Tell your friends about us, remind them to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And please check out the link to our sponsor, 3 Day Blinds, in the show notes. We thank you for supporting these sponsors. It really helps make this podcast happen. James, I have been in Washington for over a half a century. And the story this week that the Trump National Security Team, with all the top muckety-mucks on what was supposed to be obviously a classified call, inadvertently included a prominent journalist, Jeffrey Goldberg, on the planning cause of a military operation on the Houthi rebels in Yemen. It's the most extraordinary illustration of the gang that can't shoot straight. These conversations were held on a Signal app that's not the most secure, and it didn't occur to anyone to ask, who is this JG that has been invited on the call? I mean, Jeff Goldberg was invited, so he, of course, joined. In the familiar Washington pattern, the cover-up or the lies were worse. First, Secretary of Defense Hegseth and the CIA director said none of this was classified. The very specifics of a military operation, the finest details, what we're going to use, where we're going to hit, who we're going to hit, that's not classified? Nonsense. You watch that picture on the front page of the Washington Post on Wednesday of the FBI director, Patel, who apparently wasn't much involved with this, Tulsi Gabbard, and the CIA director, Radcliffe. It looked like the Three Stooges. They had no idea. They were lost. Tulsi Gabbard said, at first refused to even acknowledge she was on the call. I mean, it was recorded. You could hear her voice. And then they all tried to attack Jeff Goldberg. Mind you, they invited him on the call. Trump called him a sleazebag. Hegseth, it was worse. Michael Waltz, who I thought was the most capable of this sorry lot, went on Fox, where else, and fumbled and really dissembled when Laura Ingraham asked him the obvious questions. He didn't know, he said. I mean, he, again, went through this lie that this stuff wasn't classified. There's a real case here that national security laws were broken, though there's no chance this Justice Department would look into this. But, the final point I make, back 65 years ago, President Kennedy's first term, they had a disaster, the Bay of Pigs. And Kennedy acknowledged it. And you know what? It was a disaster. And his popularity rose because he told the truth and leveled with the American people. These people are incapable of doing that. And I think some people like Waltz, who might have been so inclined, you can't do it around Trump. It is all the Roy Cohn playbook. Attack, deny, lie, and always claim victory. That's what they all have to do, or the master won't let them serve anymore. And I think there's a real lesson here of a really a terribly incompetent crowd.
Incompetent? Okay. It's Curly, Moe, I don't know. Who's
Jack,
the other one? So, I guess. So I'm in Paris. And I'm reminded of, we're talking about John Kennedy. And when the Cuban Missile Crisis happened, he dispatched Adlai Stevenson, I think was then the
It was
UN
Dean
ambassador.
Acheson. It was Dean Acheson. Yeah.
It was Dean Acheson. They went to Paris to see de Gaulle. And he said, I have, Monsieur President, I'm here at the behest of the President of the United States, and I have photos of the Cuban missiles. And de Gaulle said, my dear man, I need no photos. I have the word of the President of the United States. That's enough. Well, okay. So Paris 1962 is not Paris of 2025. But I just kind of remind, it's so catastrophic. In the details, of course, as you get further into the details, the worse it gets. But this is all part of a pattern of, it's wrong to call them incompetent. They're buffoons. They call it in Louisiana couillon, is a kind of French word for clowns. They're couillons. And I'm here with some Louisiana people, and we can't stop talking about the Chafalard River. How low can this go? We don't have any idea.
We learn a new one that we go.
Yeah. Every day. Do you think this is going to stop now? Of course it's not. Of course it's not. And you mentioned Waltz. I just want to use that to pivot to a larger point. We know about the Wisconsin special election coming Tuesday, right?
Get into that in a minute.
Let me just add two to our discussion. Florida 1, Florida 6. Okay, both are up Tuesday. I think Florida 1 is like plus 30 something Republican. Florida 6 is probably 20 or about. You go to trouble to look it up. And I'm not certainly saying we're going to win either one of them, but you look what happened last night in Pennsylvania. Okay, there was a special state senate election, and it's mostly in Lancaster County, be right about it. And it was a Trump district. Trump carried about 20 points. The Democrat won. There is an uprising in America. There just is. And we got to recognize it and use it to our best benefit and just ride it. But it's coming. You know, remember what Louis XIV said, after me, the deluge. Well, the deluge is coming.
I think that's right. And I think, look, the policies are horrible. It's authoritarian. It may even be worse. It's a really sorry lot. But, when they're incompetent, when you are incompetent, that really makes it worse. You have these Doge henchmen throwing out people with important expertise. I mean, really, in nuclear power, nuclear energy, Social Security. It's really stunning, and there's going to be a huge price to pay. This national security team, Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, John Ratcliffe, and yes, now Walz, is clearly the worst, the most incompetent in modern American history. I was no huge fan, as you know, James, of Trump 1.0, but just compare whatever you think may have been his deficiencies. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, a respected 4-star Marine general with experience in the field, well-read, well-connected. Compare him to Pete Hegseth, a Fox News analyst with a sordid personal life, a heavy drinker, and now we see a pathological liar. I mean, Pete Hegseth attacking Jeff Greenfield, a man of great journalistic distinction and honor, is just, I'm going to just shake my head. Pam Bundy, the AG in only 2 months, has promised as the worst attorney general in history, but she's got competition. I guess it was Mitchell Palmer and John Mitchell. There has never been a defense secretary like Pete Hegseth with his total lack of confidence and character. And ultimately, people will see that and they will pay a huge price.
So, of course, so when you look at this administration and you look at what's coming down, and it's going to change by the day. Is in Democrat, and we have yet to figure this out. We've yet to decide on something. Are these people dangerous, or are they clowns?
They can be both, James.
But of course, being a clown can bring bad results. But when they're being portrayed, are they a bunch of dangerous, plotting people who really do want to overturn the Enlightenment? Okay. Or are they just people that just can't do shit? And, always the temptation is to be for both. And I understand that. But do you laugh at them or are you scared of them? But it's better to pick one, and one that is going to last. And I think both are eminently true, that there are truly dangerous people, and they're truly a pack of clowns. And I just, I think that we're going to have to decide on a definition here in the next 6 weeks or so. But unless I'm wrong, but I could be. I'm not. Don't take it to the bank, but I think Wisconsin is going to turn out pretty good
let's
for
turn to
us.
that right now, because I think that's the next topic and we want to bring it up. And I think you raised a good point here. Because Democrats are today down and depressed. They're still furious at Joe Biden. They lost the election. They're steamrolled every day by the congressional GOP lemmings and a reckless, lawless president. So what can, and you've mentioned this, what can turn this around? A few electoral wins. You mentioned earlier state Senate seat in Pennsylvania. They won by 500 votes, but Trump carried that district by 15 points. That's a little one, but the big big enchilada is Wisconsin, the state Supreme Court race. James, I have never seen a state Supreme Court race with these kind of stakes. $100 million. $100 million for a Supreme Court race between a progressive and a conservative. It matters a lot to Wisconsin people, abortion, voting rights, and all that. But what really has changed it is Elon Musk is in there spending $25 million. This is really, really, both parties, and to some extent, are making this about Elon Musk. And if my reporting is right from a distance, I think the Democrats are going to win, and that's going to send a resounding message about Elon Musk.
Well, first of all, Wisconsin is hugely important. The two congressional seats in Florida are hugely important. So there's this narrative that Democrats are demoralized. They're a weak political party. It's almost overwhelming. All right, and this is the Florida 6th District. Think Daytona Beach. It's plus, 20 Republican. You can look it up. The fundraising, the Republican, as of yesterday, had raised about $1 million. The Democrat had raised $9 million. Maybe the narrative that Democrats are all depressed out there and that Trump is a steamroller running through this, maybe that's wrong. Maybe we've had 4 months of terrible analysis. We got to consider that. And maybe there's real energy out there among the Democratic rank and file. And I think that, if you look at everything, I know it's special. There's 1,000 reasons you can say Trump is not on the ballot. But by every measure, it looks like this coming up. Turnout, fundraising, enthusiasm, everything. The Democrats are crushing it right now. They just are. And I hope, and I have a reason, I think it's going to follow through. And I think Wisconsin's can be very devastating to them. But these two seats in Florida, if we won one, watch out. And I think we could win this 6 easier.
I agree. But on the other hand, if you come very close, which is very impressive because, as you say, they're plus 20, plus 30, it'll be a good showing. But the importance of Wisconsin is Elon Musk. Elon Musk is the financial angel of the Republican Party now. There are members of Congress who basically think Elon Musk is a disaster, but they don't dare saying about him because they think, if I'm in trouble in 2026, he'll come and help me. I don't know if he will, but that's what they think. If he is on the ballot out there, there is the best ad that Susan Crawford, the Democrat for that state Supreme Court race, is running is about Elon Musk. They said this guy wants to cut Social Security. He wants to cut Medicaid. He wants to cut research for child cancer. He is out of control. And if Elon Musk, and now Trump, of course, will say, well, that wasn't me, that was Elon. And we'll see how that plays out. But I hope Florida produces a surprise. But I think Wisconsin is a big deal.
I don't disagree. I think it sounds is, but you'd have a big deal that would turn into a mega big deal. And let's wait and see, because certainly not. It would take something, but even Steve Bannon is like sounding the alarm about Florida 6. So, I mean, that I don't know what that's worth. Maybe Bannon is, he's in a fight with Elon Musk. Of course, he can't wait to say Musk is the reason that they lost. Bannon's actually pulling for the Democrat in Wisconsin and Florida. I promise you he is. And I don't take his exhortation that the Democrats could win Florida 6 because he hates Musk so much. But let's see
Well,
what
the
happens.
other thing, James, if they win one of those 2 Florida seats, I believe my math is correct, it reduces the margin that Johnson has from 2 to 1. That means he can only afford to lose 1. And you know something?
Right.
Two is a lot bigger in those politics than 1.
You know that better than I do, but I think it is. But there's a lot to look at. And again, I think that Jeffrey Goldberg was on Morning Joe for an hour this morning. A couple of people called me and said he's been on the whole hour. And if you don't think that Jeffrey, he deservedly, I mean, look, he was sitting there, he's sitting in his office, minding his own business, and he gets the biggest story of the decade in his lap. I mean, I guess there's a lot of people in your profession, a former profession, that are going, geez, why can't I get this lucky? You minded your own business. And, it wasn't any great scoop. It wasn't deep throat in a parking garage. It was just like these fucking fools.
No, but he handled it beautifully. He wrote a terrific piece, came back again. I don't watch Morning Joe, but I've been reading his pieces in the Atlantic, and it's just absolutely devastating. And Walsh keeps saying, I don't know who JG was. Oh, wait a minute. This was a secure call, supposedly, with principals. And there was somebody named JG, and Walsh said, well, I don't know who it was. It was obviously a mistake. And he's asked, well, was there someone who wasn't on the call that it could have been? And they didn't make the call. And he said, yeah, there was someone who was not on the call. Well, who was that? Well, I won't tell you. I mean, it's amazing.
But remember, it's even worse than that, because when the story first broke, they said none of this was classified.
They still say that.
It was just all bullshit. Right. Well, but he had, and then he had the rest of the stuff. I mean, again, these people are deeply and genuine and profoundly fools. They're just fools of the first order. I'm sorry, they are.
Yeah. Well, I think this was this could end up being, not the 7 days of May, but could end up being the 7 days of March and April 1st that really turns things around. And I think, I think your point about Democrats maybe not being down. Washington Democrats are down. And that's where a lot of the reporting is being done. And it's pretty easy to talk to Washington. And we all know, from personal experience, that when you talk just to Washington Democrats or Washington Republicans, you don't get the full picture.
Correct. And this is, people other than Washington are going to speak Tuesday, and they're going to speak in Wisconsin, and they're going to speak in Florida. They spoke last night in Pennsylvania. And
actually, two elections in Pennsylvania. I mean, the House seat, they kept the House seat, but it was supposed to be close, and it wasn't.
Yeah, and the Senate seat was supposed to not be close, and we won it.
And I think that's, James, I think that's in Lancaster County.
My
brother lives up there. I want to tell you something. That's red territory. That is not.
It's, if you look at registration, it's much more Republican than vote. I have this theory. I ask your brother. Lancaster County is a little bit like Utah. It's really deep red, but Trump does not match in Republican numbers there. There's some revulsion against him. And, Utah, everybody's going to vote Republican. There's no doubt about that. But, I mean, the fact that I know that was at least part of Lancaster County. There was Cumberland, too, but I'm not sure. But, I mean, they're not coming out. He's not their guy right now.
Yeah. Okay, big week coming up. We'll be there to tell you all about it a week from today.
Get your light right with 3-Day Bond. It's funny we have this ad because I am in Paris. I'm in a six, and I left. I didn't close the window shade this morning. God damn, if I'd wake up early in the morning with the light coming in, I'd have given anything if 3 day lines would have done this hotel. But boy, I just reminded this morning at 5:30 and about 6 o'clock in the morning how valuable this stuff is.
It really is. Nothing is worse than blinding light at the crack of dawn. Getting out of bed to close the shades was a real pain, and doesn't get any easier as you get older. You wonder, why is it already 2025 and my blinds still aren't smart and automated? But we have good news out there. Listen, folks, there is a better way to buy blinds, shutters, shades, and drapery called 3-Day Blinds. They are the leading manufacturer of custom window treatments in the United States. And right now, if you use our URL, 3dayblinds.com/war room, they have a buy one, get one 50% off deal. Now, you can shop for almost anything at home. So shop for blinds at home too. 3-Day Blinds, local, professionally trained design consultants average 10 plus years of experience in providing expert guidance on the right blinds for you right in the comfort of your home. Just set up an appointment and you'll get a free, no obligation quote the same day. We love that the expert team at 3-Day Blinds handles all the heavy lifting, measuring, and installing blinds that can be a big challenge, particularly if you're like James or me. So they design, measure, and install for you. That way you can sit back, relax, and leave it to the pros. Once we heard about them, we knew it was time to upgrade. Their blinds come in tons of great styles, so it's an easy sell on the family with 3-Day Blinds. We're excited to be getting better sleep and opening and closing our blinds from the comfort of our beds. Alexa, I slept great. Now let there be light. We know you'll like 3-Day Blinds as much as everyone else does. They have thousands of options and even give you actual samples so you won't have to do any guesswork. Don't wait. Transform your home with 3-Day Blinds today, right now. Get quality window treatments that fit your budget with 3-Day Blinds. Head to 3dayblinds.com/war room for their buy one, get one 50% off deal on custom blinds, shades, shutters, and drapery. For a free, no charge, no obligation consultation, just head to 3dayblinds.com/war room. One last time, that's buy one, get one 50% off when you head to the number 3, DAY, blinds.com/war room. The link also is in our show notes. Our guest is Ritchie Torres, the Democratic congressman from the Bronx and one of the most interesting young politicians in the Democratic Party. Congress, first of all, Congressman, truth in packaging. In a column recently, I took issue with you for criticizing Democratic leader Chuck Schumer's vote to avoid a government shutdown. I believe the Trump administration is an existential threat. Democrats ought to take them on every opportunity. But I think a shutdown would have been music to Elon Musk. He would have used it to just savage all kinds of employees and agencies, even more than he's doing now. And that this wasn't the fight you wanted to pick. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Look, it could be an issue on which reasonable people of goodwill can disagree, and I want to just be clear, I have enormous respect for Senator Schumer. I feel like he's done an enormous amount of good for an enormous number of New Yorkers. But it did feel to me that he was for a government shutdown before he was against it. We've known that there was going to be the risk of a government shutdown in mid-March for months. And so why are we hearing about these concerns about emergency powers for Elon Musk in the 11th hour? It just felt like a pretext for voting against the CR. Look, at a minimum, we should have had the leverage to secure a clean CR. Like historically, if you put forward a clean CR on the House floor, then you're going to get bipartisan votes. But if you're going to put a purely Republican CR, then burden falls on the party in power to produce the Republican votes necessary for passing it. So I felt like at a minimum, we should have been able to secure a clean CR.
Okay, looking ahead, where will you have leverage? Debt ceiling, reconciliation, what?
I mean, my concern is that we had the most leverage with the CR. I feel we have less leverage with the debt limit because, the defaulting on the nation's debt would be so catastrophic that it would outweigh any political benefit. So I feel like we have minimal leverage when it comes to the debt limit. I do worry that Donald Trump is so powerful that he could potentially unify Republicans around a reconciliation bill that would include severe cuts to Medicaid. I hope I'm wrong, but that's my fear.
Wouldn't that be a great issue for you?
Well, I'm looking at it morally, like I represent.
No, I know, but I mean, I'm saying, and morally it's reprehensible, but, it's also could be politically reprehensible for them.
Look, I represent the poorest congressional district in America where 67% of my constituents are on Medicaid, but I do feel the Republicans who voted for a budget resolution that authorizes up to $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid, those are Republicans are going to pay a price in the 2026 midterms.
Well, let me ask you this. You are seriously considering running for governor next year. And you said that, if you were elected, you would cooperate with the administration to export violent criminals, immigrants. But I mean, you look at this, and Trump and Homan, I'm sure there are some violent criminals that they're deporting, but they don't care about due process. They just, this is a great television show for them. Do you think it's possible to cooperate with them really on anything?
Well, look, I want to be clear. I oppose the immigration policy of the administration. Like in a rational world, we would all agree, look, if you pose a public safety risk and you're a violent and repeat offender, then you should be subject to deportation with due process. To be clear, due process is sacrosanct. But if you're simply here unlawfully, but you're committing no crime, you've become rooted in our community, in our country, then I feel you should be protected from deportation. So I have a fundamental difference of opinion with the Trump administration. But for me, it's not cooperating with the Trump administration. If we receive a warrant from a federal court, I feel like as elected officials, we have to comply with it. So if there is due process and there's a judicial warrant, we have no choice but to comply.
So, Congressman, I state the following, I think, is our fact. You're a Puerto Rican, which in essence is multi-ethnic, multiracial. Okay, I've worked in Puerto Rico. You're also openly gay. I think that's not it's kind of cool with that.
And not in the closet for a while.
Right. And you represent a district with a partisan lean of plus 25 or more. Yet, what has inspired you to take a more pragmatic approach? I mean, you could just do what most people that are in these overwhelmingly Democratic districts, overwhelmingly Republican districts, and be, the torpedo, the person that's ready to go out. And yet, when I hear you speak pretty sensibly about universal themes. How much do you get back in the district? The pressure for you to be, I hate to use the word progressive because I think I'm progressive. I certainly know I'm a liberal, so I hate to use the word, no, you can be more liberal because I think I am. But how do you get much pushback that you should be further out there or not adjusting, trimming your sails somewhat?
I mean, to be blunt, I represent a district of working class Black and brown Democrats who largely have no college education, rather than a district of white progressives. And I feel working class communities historically have been the beating heart of the Democratic Party, of the party of FDR. And I reject the premise that I'm even a centrist. I feel like I'm representing.
I think I'm projected too. I'm a liberal, but go ahead, keep going.
But I represent the common sense, pragmatic sensibilities of working class communities of color in places like the Bronx, who are concerned about bread and butter issues like health and housing, schools and jobs, lowering costs, lowering crime rates. The absurdities like defund the police or abolish ICE or Latinx, do not come from working class people. These ideas come from the college educated elites of our society.
Thank you so much. So
I'll tell you a quick story.
Sure.
I had a conversation with an elected official who was advocating for the abolition of policing, and he came from a much wealthier, whiter part of the city. And I said to him, let me get this straight. You want to conduct a social experiment, abolishing the police on my constituents in the Bronx. And what happens if that social experiment goes badly? What happens if it leads to an outbreak of gun violence and gang violence and youth violence? Like, you live in an ivory tower, you're insulated from the consequences of your social engineering, whereas my constituents, who are poor people of color, have to live with the consequences of higher crime rates. Like, in what world does that constitute progress? In what world does that constitute racial justice? And so I feel like I'm much more faithful to the pragmatism of the working class than the far left.
So Congressman, I'm sure there's much of a debate, but there are people, I would say, that we have to be very wily how we approach this, that they're already collapsing under their own weight. And we should allow this to unfold. There are people that say we have to be aggressive, we have to take action now, we have to do something. What is it that I'm all for doing something? We have no power. What can we do other than give a speech right now?
Look, there are activists who are demanding more performative politics. But for me, performative politics is a distraction from the real issues.
Right.
And there's no evidence that more political theater is going to fundamentally change the reality in Washington, D.C. Right? Is more political theater going to prevent Elon Musk and Donald Trump from doing irreparable damage to the federal government?
Right.
So, it might be emotionally gratifying,
right,
but it does nothing to change the reality on the ground.
And I think you're spot on when you say performative politics. We're just performing and preening and saying, "Look at me, I've tilted windmills or whatever it is," and that's all you're doing. But it's I'll turn it back down and I'll come back again. But I really do respect your political skills. And I think you represent the people that sent you there extremely well. And I just don't think that the people in your district that are overwhelmingly Democratic, overwhelmingly non-white, have aspirationally are like a lot of other people in the United States. They want to work hard. They want to have some kind of retirement security. They want to have some kind of health care. They want to have a shot at a better life for their children. And I just don't think that we as Democrats are nearly as divided as some people try to say that we are. But I'll leave you with that thought, give it back down, and come back and talk to you again.
Following up on that, Congressman, what you are very articulate. Give us just in a couple, 3-4 sentences, the compelling economic message that Democrats should convey that they had great trouble with, frankly, on the national level in the last election.
Look, we should strive for simple, repeatable messages. Nothing fancy, like lower cost, safe streets, secure borders, protect Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare, make government work for working people. That should be our platform. Ignore the fashionable nonsense.
Why do you, why? I think James is right. I think most Democrats agree with that. The vast majority agree with that, at least in Congress and in most places. But that's not the perception that most people have of Democrats. I mean, you can look at the survey data. And why is that? And is it because that there was too much focus on these fringe issues in the past couple of years?
So I might disagree with the premise of the question, if I understand it correctly. So look, I feel like cultural issues were of tertiary importance in the election. I felt the main reasons we lost were inflation and immigration. I know supply chain disruptions led to the highest inflation in more than 4 decades. And when you're the party in power presiding over historic inflation, you're going to pay a political price. So when it comes to inflation, we as Democrats were victims of circumstance. Where we should be, where we do, I think, bear more responsibilities on immigration. Since 2022, there was an overwhelming flow of migration at the border, whose impact was felt in cities like New York, where the shelter system and the social safety net and our finances were completely overwhelmed. There was a poll in December of 2023 showing that 85% of New Yorkers in a blue city were concerned about the impact of the migrant crisis on New York City. And the Biden administration waited 2.5 years before taking action against the migrant crisis. And by then it was too late. The damage was done. Republicans had successfully weaponized the issue against us. And when there was a poll on the president's executive order restricting migration, the poll revealed that the majority of Americans, Black and white, Latino and Asians, were overwhelmingly in favor of his executive order. So if his executive order was effective at reducing migration, if it was broadly popular among the American people, why did he wait so long before acting? And the answer is simple. He was pandering to the far left. Like, the far left has outsized power over the messaging and policy making of the Democratic Party. And that has made us less viable in general elections.
Yeah, I agree. You're not running.
And so I find it odd. Now there's an argument in order to, reverse the results of the 2024 election. We have to embrace the far left. That's it just doesn't make sense to me.
It sure doesn't. But you've also talked about the need for generational change with leaders and the like. You are not running, I believe, for mayor of New York City. But the front runner right now is apparently Andrew Cuomo. That's not a generational change.
Look, I approach the world not only as it should be, but as it is. And of the options, Andrew Cuomo's by far the best. Right? He's the only candidate who has the competence to run the city, who has the courage to stand up to the far left. His effectiveness as an executive is not a matter of faith; it's a matter of fact. Right? The redevelopment of LaGuardia is a fact. Right? The redevelopment of Moynihan Train Hall is a fact. The creation of Mario Cuomo Bridge is a fact. And so, is Andrew Cuomo perfect? No. But, he has shown himself to be a great builder of New York City, and he's better than everyone else.
Congressman, what is the larger political threat today? From the Democratic ultra-left, which you've talked about, or the Republican ultra-right?
Oh, there's far more to fear from the far right than the far left. We in the Democratic Party have excesses, but the Republican Party has extremes.
They're bigger too, aren't they? As a part of the party.
Yeah, Donald Trump has a massive following that threatens. Look, we're going to remain a democracy, right? The question is, are we going to remain a liberal democracy? And I do feel like Donald Trump and the MAGA movement will erode the liberalism of American democracy and undermine our institutions. And we're seeing it in real time.
Good. So, Congressman, I'll be a little bit of a political consultant here because I'm very impressed with what you said. I really hope that you have more of a forum to speak out more forcefully nationally. And my only advice here is, so your district is overwhelmingly 90, whatever, black, brown, it's urban, rural. The thing that people in your district all have in common is they want to make it. They don't have it made. I don't have any Elon Musk or Jeff Bezoses of people here. I think, what I would suggest you say is democratic policy have to start. We're on the side of the people that are trying to make it. They're on the side of the people that have it made. My district, like most people, are full of people who want to make it, who believe, who work hard, who get up early, who believe that they can have a partner in the federal government and achieve modest goals that they've set out for themselves. That's so the more you get in the weeds, the more you're going to get stuck in one thing or another. The loftier you are. So when I see something about cutting people's Medicaid, that's not going to help people make it. That's going to take a family with a sick parent out of their jobs. They're going to have to care for them. And you just use 5 different examples. But I think, and I'm just saying it before we let you go, I think you're uniquely positioned to have a strong and forceful voice in the future of the party and the direction of it, and particularly in explaining what our values should be. And I very much respect you. I'm very honored that you would come on the show. And if any of your future endeavors that you feel like I can help, feel free to call on me.
That's the highest compliment coming from you.
Thank you. Albert?
No, thank you very much, Congressman. This has been a really...
I quote you often. It's the economy, stupid.
There you go. We're trying to get through this thing, with a good life. All we're asking for is a help. We're having for a help. Anything you want to say is my people are on the make. They want to make it. They're not there yet, but I want to be sure that they have everything that I can provide for them to make it. And by the way, is Yankee Stadium in your district?
Yankee Stadium is in my district. Arthur Abbey, Little Italy is in my district. We have the best Italian restaurants.
Oh, okay.
Botanical Garden, the Bronx Zoo.
You, I assume, are a big Yankee fan.
I'm by definition a Yankee.
Well, everybody has some liabilities, so therefore we can overlook those.
But I tell people I'm bipartisan because my chief of staff is a Mets fan.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
My name is Andrew Zucker. I'm a contributing editor at Town & Country, and I'm the host of The Golden Age, Politicon's newest podcast. It explores the collision of power, politics, and culture. Join me every Tuesday as I interview guests who are shaping the new world order. You won't want to miss it. So tune into The Golden Age with Andrew Zucker wherever you can get your podcasts, or watch us on the Politicon YouTube channel.
And now for the outrage of the week. James, you'll remember that on probably hundreds of occasions, one of the commitments that Donald Trump made to the American people, there will be no cuts in Social Security benefits for you. We won't touch Social Security. You remember that? I mean, we heard it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, he and Elon Musk are finding a way to slash Social Security after all. And they're going to really hurt programs that chiefly affect the elderly and people with disabilities. To them, those are the have-nots. DOGE is ransacking through the Social Security Administration looking for fraud, which they're finding really doesn't much exist. They're cutting 12% of the employees, ending phone services and offices for a number of the 72 million recipients. And this time, the DOGE marauders had an assist. An inside job. According to the Washington Post, the new acting commissioner, a man named Leland Dudick, was a Social Security employee who was feeding DOGE information behind his boss's back. This all has a certain familiar Eastern European ring, I think. He got his payoff by getting a job which shows, I think, he is every bit as bad as the Musk marauders. There are going to be long lines. There's going to be inadequate service, minimal assistance, and don't for a second accept the fact this is a bureaucracy. This is all due to Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
Well, correct. From outrage, let's talk about Jeff Bezos. Here's a guy, he's, worth, I don't know how many $100 billion who I have no idea, who is easily the greatest retailer in history. I mean, he just is. You gotta say what he's done is he's changed the retail business in ways that are so profound it's hardly imaginable. And he is sitting there, and he's turning into Ferdinand Porsche, who's remembered to be a collaborator. He was great, obviously made great cars. He was a great engineer, but that's not what it is. And man, you're not only going to have to live, because this is going down, and you know that, and I know that, and you're not stupid. You look at this fucking shit. Come on, the national security stuff. You look at the social security stuff. You know who Elon Musk is. Don't kid yourself, okay? And why are you doing this? And what you're doing to the Post, and what you're doing to your reputation and your family and your children? It probably costs you, 7% of your net worth. Shit, if I got 100 billion or 93 billion, why do I give a shit? I want my children to think I had a good night. And you and similar people that are similarly situated to you are just giving all legacy, all historical importance, all possible admiration you can have. For what? For fucking what? That they're not going to come after you. You have this tremendous economic power. You have tremendous influence in public opinion, persuasion. You own one of the legacy important media operations, and you're doing nothing fucking with it. You're appeasing people that you know. I'm not telling. I could never supposed to tell Jeff Bezos that he doesn't notice. These people are fucking fools. And why are you doing this, man? I don't understand it. I just don't understand how you can have all of this accomplishment in your life. You can be all this, and you payola for $41 million jackass documentary or re-airing The Apprentice. I mean, you had a chance to really be studied as a model by children in history books. And this is who you are, and this is where you are. And I think you made a tragic reputational error.
I could not concur more. It's he may ultimately will pass away, because we all do.
Oh, dude.
And he may be worth, I don't know, 20, 30 billion more.
Ain't gonna be that long.
And that reputation, I said the other day about that senior partner, Paul Weiss, that he may keep the firm in business for a lot longer. He may make a lot more money, but the lead in his obituary is going to be, so-and-so, the chairman of Paul Weiss, who capitulated to the Trump administration.
Well, Jeff Bezos is going to live easily to see the catastrophe that this is, and that he will forever be associated with. It's right now. It's unraveling right in front of his eyes. Again, this guy's not going to be remembered as the greatest retailer that ever lived, of which he is. He's going to be remembered as a collaborator. And he will never, ever wash that stench off of him. I don't care how much money he has. I don't care how much power he has. I don't care how many people he can terrify. It's not going to happen. Dude, you've locked your place in history down. And I'm not talking about after you're dead. I'm not talking about 5 years from now. I'm talking about 5 months from now. This thing is crashing under its weight, and everybody that was a collaborator in this is going to pay a awful, awful price in history.
Oh, man. Grandchildren will learn about what Grandpa did in the important times.
He's going to learn about it. He's going to look in the fucking mirror. It's coming. It's around the corner. Says he's going to live with his own legacy.
Hey, now for the listener questions, James. This is really an extraordinary time, and our listeners are delivering with great questions. So let's start. Steve in Burbank, California, wants to ask you, do you worry more about the crazies now than you have at other times in your career?
That's a good question. And the answer is I'm not sure. maybe what it looks like, they might be too crazy to do very much harm. There's not very much of a solace to take, but this is so crazy that I don't have it. I'm sorry, my friend in Burbank, I just don't have a historical reference to help you with here. But I'll definitely share. Yeah, I'm worried about the future of the United States, and I'm not exactly sure how we can deal with this, but deal with it, we're going to have to. So it's a good question, and I struggle with the answer.
Yeah, me too. I actually think it is worse because I think the crazies in the past tended to largely be on the periphery. I mean, they were factors, they were members of Congress and so forth. The crazies now are running the government. And
you're
so
right. And Trump won. We had some non-crazy people, of which
Right.
he made sure that we weren't going to repeat that. Now,
Oh, no way, right?
No, I'm sorry. I mean, it's a dire situation, and my only hope is, and I think it might be happening, is the public is going to have to solve this for us.
Well, we'll see. Next Tuesday will be a great start. Daniel in San Juan Capistrano, California. What a fabulous place. Daniel says, is the release of top secret war plans on a non-secret server to a journalist unforgivable? Yeah, and it's also almost certainly illegal, but no, there will be no penalty. There will be no prosecution. But mainly it shows just such, as we discussed, rank stupidity and ignorance. And they are taking the Roy Cohn playbook, and it's attack, deny, lie, and always claim you were right. It really is outrageous, and it won't go away.
No. And I mean, you've followed the scandal last 60 years about, I don't know, whatever in American politics. But this is not a one-off event. This is just how stupid these fucking people are. That they're just that stupid and clownish.
We really are going heavily in California today, but that's okay. We got a lot of great fans out there. Connie in Alameda says to you, James, do you think it's time for Bush, Obama, Biden, and Clinton to start speaking out to all Americans with a unified message?
You kind of know. I understand what your question is. I have just been a believer and still that there's a popular uprising out there, and we just have to let it flourish. And I think if the former president got in, it'd be portrayed as kind of political, and I just think we got to let these people go. I think let's see what happens in Wisconsin. Let's see what happens in Florida. But the indications are, and by the way, you look at these town halls, and I can't tell you there's not some, Democratic plants in this, but there's not a lot. I mean, this stuff you're seeing, and I've looked at it 5 times, and if these are actors, they're pretty goddamn good actors.
You don't have enough Democrats to plot in Wyoming.
In Iowa, I mean, they came after Grassley like, Jesus, man. They were not happy with that guy for good reason.
Yeah. James, our next question is from Pete in Raleigh, North Carolina, moving back to the East Coast. He says, why don't the Democrats pick some races they have zero chances of winning and not run instead back a reasonable Republican as an independent? That may work in a few places, not very many. They've done it in a couple places where they had no chance of winning. Obviously, Utah was one, but they've done it in some congressional races. Fine. It's a fine strategy. I don't think it's going to produce much.
Anytime that people are angry, any form they have to express that anger that people see us from the grassroots it'll produce something. But I think people are really, really starting to come around on just how crazy and how dangerous this is. I really do.
James, this question has you written all over it. It's
Oh,
from
my God.
Jordan in Washington, D.C.
All right.
And Jordan says, shouldn't Democrats get their heads out of the faculty lounge and start using words and phrases that don't have to be explained, like fighting oligarchies?
Well, of course, he's right. And I think, honestly, I think that everybody kind of knows that now. And, our friend Alyssa Slotkin pointed it out again and again and again. And you're right. And fighting oligarch, who in the hell, knows what an oligarch is even? And, we do need to have a language police, but not the kind of language police that the NPR envisioned. We need an English language police. Use the simplest word available in the English language to describe something, and you'll never go wrong. And oligarchs or plutocrats are not near a simple word as billionaires.
Alenia, I guess it's Alenia, in Berkeley, California, we're back to the coast again, says, is there any hope of stopping Trump before 2026? It's limited. The courts can play a role. Of course, their view of the courts, they go in and they decide to totally shutter VOA. And I think their game plan is fine. If a court ultimately says we don't have that authority, which they probably don't, we will have done so much damage, so much chaos that it'll take them years, if then, to put it back together again. So I think that some of these elections will matter. Maybe some of these Republicans in the House will start to get scared, maybe, but they're scared from the other side too. So, I think the courts and Congress a little bit, but that 2026 election is the chance that you start to turn it. Well, it's not the chance you start turning around. As we said, next week is big. November's election in Virginia, New Jersey are big. But he's going to get away with a lot, I'm afraid.
So I got your question is something I've thought about, and I honestly believe I would take 3, maybe 4-1. He doesn't finish the term. All right. So wait a minute. All right, James, that's crazy. All right, first of all, you look at his health history. You look at what's observable about his health. He's fat. He has bad family history. He's had bad diet. I don't know. I'm not a actuarial table guy. Right. And if you look at what's happened in like 9 weeks or 9.5 weeks, and if you think as I do, there's no reason to believe that it's going to continue. And see how this goes. That guy has. He can just easily say to hell with it. And of course, J.D. Vance is the guy that they have in there. They don't. Russell Voigt, they don't give a shit about Trump. He's just a vehicle, right? And J.D. Vance is there, and I'm telling you, I promise everybody this, they are trying to overturn the Enlightenment. And they just are. And you look, every time you turn around, you come up, it's the same thing. And Vance is a Enlightenment hater if there ever was one. And this guy, so I actually think the question is somewhat relative. I can tell you, I think it's going to happen. It's 50-50. I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say it's not a far-fetched deal that he just don't make it, either mentally, physically, or politically. He's got a lot of. If you just think of what we found out since January the 20th, if you think it's going to stop, okay, but I don't.
I think you're right. I'm not sure he won't make it, but
I'm not either.
But I also think, James, it's not as noticeable as it was with Biden. He's slipping, and he covers it up by his bravado, if you'll pardon the expression, his bullshit. And but I don't think he has. I think his mental acuity is on the decline.
Well, I know what his political standing is deteriorating, and it's going to continue to deteriorate. And I keep coming back. we've really be afraid of these guys are so stupid. They're so much of buffoons. I don't know, and I keep coming back to these corporate types, Bezos being the most prominent one.
But lots of others, too.
There's lots of others, the Davis Polk people. Davis Polk is, they might have saved the law firm, but they ain't saved their fucking reputation, I can tell you.
The other thing that they don't, well, this is mainly the Silicon Valley types who've gone for Trump. Yeah, there may be better policies for regulation and taxes and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, in a capitalist society, businesses depend on the rule of law. And Trump has no belief in the rule of law unless it conveniences him. And if they can go after somebody, like they've done with these law firms and universities and others, ignoring the rule of law, they can come after you someday. And it's very, very short-sighted. It really is.
It's so short-sighted, and there's no chance that this is going to work out. And there's every chance that for the rest of your lives, and the rest of your children's lives, and your grandchildren's lives, your name is going to be etched in history as a collaborator with not just a bunch of criminals, but, as Jimmy Breslin would say, a gang that couldn't even shoot straight. So that's you've made your bed, man. I can't nothing I do to help, but there's still time to get right. You're not dead yet. Think about it. This is not a smart play. Not a smart play.
Okay. Listen, we didn't get to all of your questions because there's so many that are so good. If we didn't get to them this week, please send them back or send a new one in next week because we love these questions. It keeps us on our toes, certainly, and we learn a lot from some of these questions. So we had a heavy California-centric list today, but we're looking for people from all over, and I see there was somebody from Canada that I should have gotten to. Maybe next week. So in any event, keep them coming because we love them. Thanks for listening to Politics War Room with James Carville, and I'm Al Hunt. As always, send your questions for us by email to politicswarroom@gmail.com or tweet them for next week's show at Politicon. Now, following this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you'd check out the link to our sponsor, 3 Day Blinds, in our episode show notes. We thank you for supporting them. When you do, you help make this podcast happen. Now, to keep up with us, subscribe to Politics War Room on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And check our Substack at politicswarroom.com. James and I are constantly adding new content, so go take a look. You can also find other shows you might enjoy on the Politicon YouTube channel or when you search Politicon on your favorite podcast sites. Remember, please rate the show with a 5-star review, and we'll be back next week with another show as we continue our War Room planning.